The year was 1865, and the Wyoming Territory stretched wide as a thundercloud, dry and dust-choked, waiting to break. The wind rolled through like a whisper of warning, curling around the chapel on the hill, freshly whitewashed, bright as a bone in the sun. Inside, every breath held still. Clara Dawson stood at the altar, spine straight, chin high. She wore her mother's wedding dress, restitched with calloused fingers and hope, lace shoulders yellowed by time, corset tight against her ribs. Her boots, polished and worn, peeked out beneath the hem, and her hair was braided back in the old way, a red ribbon laced through the plaits. Her eyes were green and sharp as a coyote's, steady now, but there was a flicker in them, like a candle fighting wind. Across from her stood Thomas McGraw, 28, tall, respectable, and flint-eyed, owner of the second-largest cattle ranch east of the Snake River. His jacket was pressed. His hat lay respectfully in his hands. To the watching crowd, he was every inch the frontier gentleman. To Clara, he was the man who'd promised her a life built from scratch and stubbornness, one they'd shape together. The preacher cleared his throat. "Do you, Thomas?" The chapel door banged open. The whisper came first. "Lo, Serpentine. She's pregnant." Silence snapped the room in half. "She's with child," came the voice again, clearer this time. From the back pew, a young woman, clutching her shawl, eyes wide and guiltless. Her words hung in the hot air like flies over meat. Thomas stiffened, his jaw locked tight. He turned to Clara, and something in his eyes shifted from pride to something colder. "She tell you who the father is?" someone muttered. A few scattered laughs. One man barked, "She don't have to." "Ain't you looking at him?" Clara's mouth parted. "That's not true," she said, low but firm. "I ain't with child, and I ain't been with no one but—" Thomas raised a hand, silencing her. "Enough." She blinked. "Is it true?" he asked. No softness, no hesitation. Clara's throat burned. "No, you know it ain't." He took a step back, like she'd sprouted horns. "I don't know nothing anymore." The preacher faltered. "Perhaps we should." "There ain't no wedding," Thomas said, loud and final. "Not to a woman like that." Gasps rippled. The preacher looked between them, helpless. Clara stood frozen, watching Thomas turn his back on her like she was a horse gone lame. The lace on her sleeves fluttered as her hands trembled. "Thomas," she whispered, not begging, just trying to reach the man she thought she knew. But he was already halfway down the aisle, pushing past neighbors and kin. A woman sobbed. The girl in the shawl shrank into her seat. Someone spat. "Filthy liar." Another, "What a disgrace." And then, worst of all, came her father's voice, Samuel Dawson, deep and slow like thunder building on the plains. "Don't come home, Clara." She turned. His hat was in his hands. His eyes weren't angry. They were hollow. Her breath left her. The silence crushed her. The chapel emptied slowly, boots scuffing wood, doors creaking wide. Clara stood alone in a white dress that wasn't hers anymore, in a building that no longer welcomed her. She walked out with no veil, no husband, and no name worth carrying. The sun outside was too bright. Her shadow stretched long across the dirt. Folks watched from porches, hats tilted low. Some pitted. Most just stared. By dusk, her things had been thrown onto the porch in a burlap sack. No note, no farewell. Her horse, Juniper, stood tethered to the post, stomping anxiously like she knew something was wrong. Clara didn't cry. She packed her saddle with the cool efficiency of a cowhand. Her rifle, her canteen, a little jerky wrapped in oilcloth. A single blanket. She strapped her mother's Bible beneath the cinch, more habit than faith. The land was wide, and she had nowhere to be. But she couldn't stay. She looked once at the ranch house, shutters open, lantern flickering inside. Then she mounted up. As Juniper trotted down the hill, the town lights flickered behind her like dying stars. The prairie opened like a wound, grass sharp and brittle, sky stretching endlessly above her, bruised with clouds. The rain came first as mist, then as a slow, needling drizzle that soaked her through. Her dress clung like second skin. She ripped the hem high for riding and kept on. No one followed. By the second night, Her dress was gone, traded for buckskin pants and a worn shirt she'd stashed in a cave near the gulch. A hiding spot from childhood, back when she and her brother played outlaws in the hills. He died in the war. She'd kept the cave. Now it was hers alone. She built a fire from damp pine and tried to sleep, but the wind howled through the rocks, and something in the dark made her mare shudder. She gritted her teeth. "You ain't got the right to cry," she muttered, voice catching. "You didn't cry when Ma died, or when Pa raised that whip." She didn't cry now, but her eyes stayed open till dawn. The days bled together in silence and grit. She hunted squirrels. She drank from creeks and counted her bullets. When the food ran low, she risked the trading post near the ridgeline. She kept her hat low and her mouth shut. No one recognized her. Or maybe they did and simply didn't care. She wasn't Clara McGraw. She wasn't even Clara Dawson anymore. She was nobody. 3 weeks out, the weather turned mean. A storm rolled in from the north, all teeth and thunder. She took shelter in the canyon, deep among the rocks. That night, as she roasted a rabbit over wet wood, something moved in the dark. A snap of twigs, a breath barely audible. She froze. Her rifle was across the fire. The wind carried a scent, man, horse, leather. Another step. She lunged for the rifle. "Easy now," came a voice, deep, steady. "I ain't here to shoot you." She aimed anyway. "That's a shame. I was hoping for a little excitement." Silence. Then a chuckle. "Still got fire, I see." He stepped into the light. Tall, broad-shouldered, black duster. Hat pulled low. Stubble on his jaw like dark sand. He looked older than she remembered, but the eyes were the same. "Silas Boone," she said, voice flat. "Clara Dawson," he replied. "Or do you go by something else these days?" She didn't lower the rifle. He raised his hands. "I heard what happened. Came looking." She cocked the hammer. "You rode all this way to gawk at the fallen bride?" "No," he said simply. "I came because I knew it was a lie." Clara stared at him, heart thudding. He moved closer, slow, and crouched by the fire. She didn't stop him. "The girl who claimed it," he said. "Her brother works for McGraw. Ain't got 2 teeth and fewer morals. I tracked him east for a few days. Got him drunk. He bragged about what Thomas paid him." Clara sat down hard. The rifle slipped from her fingers, forgotten. "Why?" she asked. Silas shrugged. "Maybe he got scared. Maybe your land was too tempting. Maybe he didn't like the idea of being tied to someone smarter than him." The flames crackled between them. Clara's voice was tight. "I thought I was losing my mind. That I'd forgot something. Made something up. I started thinking maybe they were right. They weren't. I ain't been with anyone," she said, teeth clenched. "Not ever. I was waiting. Fool that I am." Silas looked at her, and his gaze held none of the pity she dreaded. Only fire and something gentler beneath. "You ain't a fool." She breathed through her nose, hands shaking. He unrolled his bedroll beside hers. "You got a plan?" "Yeah," she said. "I'm gonna go back." He smiled. "That's so. They took my name, my land, my truth. I'm to take it all back." Silas tipped his hat. "Then I reckon you'll need help." The fire flared between them, casting their shadows high on the canyon wall. The next morning, Clara stood at the canyon's edge, wind lashing her braid. The sky was clear, but something fierce boiled beneath her ribs. She'd spent her life surviving. Now, she'd do more than survive. She'd reclaim. Juniper snorted and stamped. Silas stood behind her, tightening his saddle. "You sure?" he asked. Clara mounted up. "I ain't riding back to ask," she said. "I'm riding back to take." And with that, she dug her heels in, and the two of them rode into the rising sun, dust kicking high behind them. Toward justice, toward reckoning, toward the truth. The canyon didn't forgive, and it didn't forget. Its walls rose high and jagged like God's own ribs, cracked and blistered by centuries of wind and flood. The shadows that curled along its edges weren't just dark. They were deep, old, and watching. Clara rode along the edge with her jaw tight and eyes forward, the reins held steady in gloved hands. The mare beneath her, Juniper, trotted carefully, sure-footed, but uneasy. Every so often, her ears twitched at a sound Clara couldn't hear. Behind her, Silas Boone kept his distance, not out of caution, but out of respect. He knew when a woman needed silence more than comfort. He'd ridden with men like that in the war. Boys turned to steel by loss. Clara was the same, hardened but unbroken. They'd ridden 2 days straight, eastward, crossing the ridgeline that overlooked Three Forks Valley. The route wasn't easy. Bandits roamed the outer edges, preying on traders too bold or too desperate to wait for an escort. But Clara didn't hesitate. She knew the land. It was in her bones. "This canyon," Silas said finally, as the sun dipped low and threw fire across the sky. "I remember this place. You and your brother used to trap rabbits up here." She glanced back. Ethan was the one who could snare him with string and spit. "I just carried the basket." Silas gave a low chuckle. "That boy could make a mule laugh." Her face softened, but only for a second. "I buried him in soil too dry to hold his name," she said. "All I've got now is what he left me. Pride, stubbornness, and a patch of land Thomas is fixin' to claim." "You ever think about letting it go?" Silas asked gently. Clara turned in the saddle, slow and steady. Her voice didn't rise, but it cut clean. "You ever think about letting go of your brother's badge when the bullet came through his chest?" Silas fell quiet. He tipped his hat low and nodded. They camped that night near the river bend, where the canyon narrowed and the stars spilled overhead like shattered glass. Clara lit the fire with practiced hands, eyes scanning the dark. The night was too still. Even the crickets kept quiet. "Something ain't right," she said. Silas checked his revolver, the click of metal sharp in the hush. "Been feeling that since midday. Saw a hawk circling back west. Made 2 passes. That ain't normal." They didn't speak much after that. The fire crackled low, and the air turned sharp as a knife's edge. When the attack came, it came fast. 3 men, maybe 4. Faces masked, boots muffled. Clara woke to the sound of Juniper screaming and a shadow looming above her bedroll. She rolled, grabbed the knife from her boot, and slashed upward. Blood sprayed across the sandstone. A second man lunged. Silas was already moving, gun drawn, muzzle flash blinding. One attacker dropped, chest blown open. The others scattered like wolves denied their kill. Clara rose fast, barefoot, her nightshirt torn at the sleeve. She spun toward the last man retreating and hurled her blade. It caught him in the thigh. He screamed. Silas moved like smoke, silent, swift, and pinned the bastard before he could crawl. In the firelight, Clara saw the man's face beneath the bandana. Young, sunburnt, and terrified. She knelt beside him, voice cold. "Who sent you?" "Don't know his name," the boy gasped. "Just said the girl with red hair wasn't as supposed to come back." Silas narrowed his eyes. "He say what he'd do if she did." The boy nodded, teeth chattering. "Said make her disappear. Quiet like. Canyon's got room." Clara stood. Her voice cracked like dry wood. "He's working for McGraw." Silas didn't argue. He stood too, pistol still in hand. "What do you want done with him?" "Leave him." Clara's voice shook, not from mercy but fury. "Let him crawl back to his master and tell him I ain't gone yet." They didn't sleep the rest of the night. By dawn, the boy was gone, dragging his leg behind him. The canyon swallowed his sobs. Clara dressed in silence, this time in her old cattle leathers, tough as hide, tight at the waist. She braided her hair back with purpose, tying it off with a red ribbon that had once been meant for her wedding. "What now?" Silas asked. "We ride through the canyon to the Dawson land," she said. "It's mine by law. Thomas knows it, and he knows I'd never sell. He tried to shame me. When that failed, he tried to kill me. I'm done playing fair." They rode out fast, dust trailing behind them like ghosts. The path narrowed, forcing them single file. The canyon walls closed in, and shadows draped thick and heavy. Halfway through the pass, Clara's hand shot up. "Oh!" Silas halted. "What is it?" She pointed. "Rope." Across the path. He squinted. Sure enough, a trip line, thin, near invisible in the glare. A trap, and just beyond it, fresh hoof prints. Someone had been watching. "We're being funneled," he said. Clara's jaw clenched. "Then we stopped playing along." She dismounted, cut the rope, and stepped off the trail. The narrow goat path leading up the canyon wall was steep, but it gave a view from above. Silas followed without question. From the ridge, they saw it all. 5 men waiting behind a fallen rock slide, rifles trained on the trail below. Ambush. Classic and cruel. They was going to kill us, Clara said, eyes narrowed, and leave the vultures to clean it up. Silas loaded a shell with slow precision. Then we strike first. She looked at him. We kill him now. There's no going back. He met her stare. You crossed that line the day he ruined your name. They didn't wait. Clara took the left flank, circling wide along the ridge. Silas counted down with his fingers. 3, 2, on 1. The sky lit up. Gunfire cracked through the canyon like thunder. Clara dropped the first man with a clean shot through the throat. Silas took another through the ribs. One tried to run. Clara caught him in the back. The last 2 panicked, returning fire blind and wild. A bullet grazed Silas's arm. He grunted but didn't slow. Within seconds, it was over. 5 bodies. 1 canyon soaked in the scent of cordite and blood. Clara descended the slope, boots scraping rock. She searched the dead, finding coins, bullets, and a sealed note addressed to Thomas McGraw. She opened it. Her fingers trembled. Inside, the handwriting was neat and cruel. Remove her before the end of the month. I want no witnesses to the transfer. Silas read over her shoulder. Transfer. Clara nodded, voice like stone. He forged a claim. Tried to pass it off while I was in hiding. Said I'd left it to him in writing. Like I was dead. Silas swore under his breath. He wants the land, Clara said. Always did. Ain't just about money. It's power. That creek cuts through my fields, feeds his cattle if he reroutes it. She tucked the note into her vest. He's going to find out what it means to steal from a Dawson. They reached the ranch by nightfall. From the ridge, Clara could see the lights still burning in the windows. Men milled around the barn, armed patrolling. McGraw had fortified like he expected war. He was right, too. Silas looked to her. You ready? She shook her head slowly. No, but I'm riding anyway. They came down from the ridge at a gallop. Silas circled left, drawing attention. Clara rode straight through the gate, her rifle raised. Men shouted. One fired a shot, but she was already off her horse behind cover. She returned fire. Screams echoed. Silas stormed the barn, smoke and flame trailing. Horses screamed. Chaos bloomed. Clara kicked in the main house door. Thomas was inside, drunk, disheveled, shirt half-buttoned. He looked up from his desk and saw her. His face went pale. You, he breathed. She stepped forward, rifle aimed square at his chest. I ought to shoot you where you sit, she said. You can't prove nothing. She slapped the note on the table. He read it, face falling. You try to have me killed, she said. You used my name, my land, my life. You lied in church. You let my father throw me out like garbage. He reached for the drawer. She fired. The bullet shattered the wood, missing his hand by inches. He froze. One more lie, she said, and I won't miss. He held up his hands, eyes darting. Behind her, Silas entered, blood on his sleeve. Sheriff's on his way, he said. I sent word by telegraph 2 days back. Told him to come armed. Clara stared at Thomas. You got 2 choices. Sign the confession or die a coward. Thomas's lip curled, but he saw the truth in her eyes. He signed. When the sheriff arrived at dawn, Clara handed over the letter and the forged deed. Thomas McGraw was arrested for fraud, conspiracy, and attempted murder. The town watched as he was taken away in chains. Clara stood tall in the morning light, dusty and unbending. She didn't cry, not when the crowd cleared, not when her father looked at her from the porch and turned away, and not when Silas placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. You did it, he said. No, she replied. I started it. She looked east, where her land waited, wild, scarred, but hers. I'm going home, she said, and this time nobody stopped her. The wind whipped hard against Clara's face as she rode, dust cutting across her cheeks like sharp whispers from the past. The town was behind her now, and McGraw with it, locked up in the marshal's custody, stripped of his power, exposed for the liar and coward he was. But victory didn't settle easy in her chest. Not yet. Not with the land ahead still scarred and empty. Not with the whispers still lingering. The Dawson ranch had been left wild. Weeds had overtaken the fences, the well sat unused, and the house, her house, stood hollow, staring out over the hills like a widow in mourning. She pulled Juniper to a stop and just looked for a while. The place had aged without her, like it held its breath the day she'd left and hadn't let it go since. Silas rode up beside her, his sleeves stained from the skirmish in the canyon, his jaw stiff from 3 nights of poor sleep. He glanced toward the house. Looks smaller than I remember. Clara didn't smile. That's grief. It shrinks things, but it's mine. She dismounted, boots hitting the dust hard, then started toward the porch with steady steps. Each board creaked like a memory. She pushed open the front door, and the air inside hit her with a force she wasn't ready for, dry, stale, heavy with silence. But her feet didn't stop. She passed her father's chair, still by the hearth, past the rifle rack where her brother used to hang his .36, and then she reached the kitchen. The table was there. So was the carving in the edge, ED plus CD etched in with a penknife, back when they were just kids dreaming about cattle and thunderclouds. Her hands gripped the back of a chair. Silas's voice was quiet behind her. You want time? She shook her head. I want peace, and I'll earn it. He stepped further in, careful not to touch anything. That land out back, riverbeds dried some, but the soil's good. Come spring, you could see it again. Cattle return if the fences go up. I'll need hands, she said. Ones that don't answer to McGraw's shadow. I know a few, he said. Men who owe me, and women who never stopped believing in the Dawson name. Clara turned to him, then really looked at him. His eyes were tired but clear, and in them she saw something she hadn't let herself consider for months. Hope that didn't ask questions. You don't have to stay, she said quietly. I know. He smiled faintly. But I reckon you fight better with someone watching your back. She let out a slow breath. I reckon I do. The days that followed moved like fire across dry brush, fast, hot, and full of sparks. News of McGraw's downfall had spread. His allies shrunk like cowards, crawling back into their holes. A few tried to stake claim to the Dawson land at his place, but Clara stood before the town council with a signed confession in one hand and her deed in the other. I am the rightful heir, she said, voice echoing across the hall. This land was my father's, and before that my grandfather's. I bury my kin on it. I bled for it, and I will not yield it to men who wear suits like armor and think it makes them bulletproof. Not a single man spoke. Not even the mayor, who once toasted McGraw like he was royalty. When she walked out of that building, the people looked at her differently. Not with pity, not with scandal, with respect. Back at the ranch, she and Silas worked dawn till dusk. They dug out the well, repaired the corral, hauled stone to reinforce the creek banks. Sometimes, when the sun dropped behind the hills, they sat by the fire with black coffee in silence. Other times, Clara told stories about Ethan, about the colt that wouldn't stay in its pen, about the wedding dress that never got worn. One night, Silas finally asked, "Do you regret it? Leaving him at the altar, I mean." Clara stared into the fire. I didn't leave him. He left me. When he let their lies stand. When he turned his back and let them call me names that don't belong in a church. Silas nodded. He's gone now. He was never really here. Another silence settled, but it didn't sting. Then came the letter. Delivered by hand. No return mark. Clara opened it with steady fingers, reading once, then again. What is it? Silas asked. She handed it to him. He read aloud, voice low. McGraw's men escaped transfer. Sheriff was ambushed. 2 deputies dead. Marshal wounded. Clara took the letter back. Her jaw clenched. He'll come here, she said. This land was the last thing he tried to take. He won't let it go. Not unless he dies. Silas stood. Then we prepare. The storm came 4 nights later. Not the weather. This storm wore spurs and hate. They came under the cloak of night. 5 men on horseback, rifles ready, torches burning. Clara spotted them first. Moonlight flashing off metal in the distance. They're coming up the creek line, she said, grabbing her rifle. Silas tossed her a bandolier. They want to burn us out. Then we don't give him time to strike. They took positions, Clara in the hayloft, Silas behind the trough near the gate. The night split with a single gunshot. Clara's aimed true. 1 rider fell, torch tumbling into the stream. The others scattered, caught off guard. Silas picked one off clean, center mass. Another rushed the front gate. Clara dropped him. Then it was McGraw, charging hard, rifle in one hand, torch in the other. He screamed as he came. That land was mine. Clara stepped out from cover, eyes fixed. No, she said. It was never yours. She fired. The bullet hit his shoulder. He fell, screamed, rolled. Silas was there in a flash. Rifle aimed square at his head. And at McGraw spat, blood foaming. You ain't got the guts. Clara walked to him slowly. Her face didn't flinch. You tried to erase me, she said. You let them shame me, hunt me. You had your men try to hang me in the canyon like I was nothing. But I'm still here. She leveled the rifle. He laughed, wheezing. You ain't got it in you, girl. Still playing at being strong. She didn't fire. Instead, she turned to Silas. Get the sheriff. I want him alive. Let the town see the truth walk on broken legs. Silas nodded and hauled McGraw to his feet. As dawn broke, Clara stood on the porch and watched the light spill over her land. Her hair was wild. Her eyes were calm. She wasn't broken. She was forged. Silas joined her. You could have killed him. I did, she said softly. Just not in the way he wanted. Silas looked at her. What now? She looked out over the hills, her hand resting lightly on the wood rail. Now, she said, the bride rides back. And this time, it wasn't to marry a man. It was to marry the land.